Hi, my name is Sarah Olson-Smith. I'm one of the pastors at St. Paul Lutheran Church in Davenport, Iowa, and the writer of this winter's Bible study for Gather magazine. This March, we're talking about rivers, looking at stories of rivers in the Bible and how rivers are teachers to us about how to live lives of faith. The Bible begins and ends with rivers. Those first rivers in the Garden of Eden, those four rivers that are at the beginning of creation, our source. And then that great river of life and the glorious and wonderful vision of our someday future that we read of in Revelation. These stories at the beginning and the end of our Bible about rivers reminds us that God is our source and our destination, the one from whom we have come and the one to whom we are going. Here on the Mississippi River, I live in Davenport, Iowa, right on the Mississippi, and just north of us in Minnesota, it starts as just a trickle of a stream at its source. And over the miles, it picks up more water and more water gets poured into it. And by the time it gets to us in Iowa, it's wide and deep. And that only increases as it gets down towards its destination in New Orleans and then the Gulf of Mexico. God is this way, beginning and then carrying all of us to our great and glorious end. I think about those times when I feel most aligned with God, when I can feel like I'm sort of in the flow of God's goodness, aligned with the Holy Spirit at work in me. And it's like I'm in a canoe being pulled by this great eternal current, moved along by God at work in me. Rivers are essential for human life. We need it to drink water and for food, to clean ourselves and our clothes and so much. That's why rivers are such a part of our stories about baptism, our baptismal identity, that we're rooted in this living water that brings us life, that saves us, that cleanses us. Rivers and water and baptism are central to our own identity. If someone were to ask me, who are those people who are models of faith for you? Who are those that you want to emulate? You want to be just like them? And I think of so many my colleagues around this church who are doing such beautiful work, people I serve who are so deeply faithful. And I think of my godmother Susan and Dorothy Day, but maybe even, mostly today at least, I think about rivers. I want to be more like rivers as I live my life of faith. And here are some reasons why I think about rivers as models for us of faithful living. Here in Davenport, the Mississippi River is a primary shipping place. People go out and play on it too, but mostly it's barges. Big barges carrying corn and soy and lumber and all kinds of things. I want to be a kind of person who carries God's love into this world, who bears it and brings it to others. I have this rock. It's sort of fabulous, and it's one of the favorite in my collection. You can see that it's been worn down by water, by a river at some point, running, smoothing it out. And then you can see there's this hole in it where it sat under a drip of a water. A drip, a drip, a drip. That steadily fell right there on this rock until that hole came. I think about rivers and their persistence. They just flow and move and do not stop. Waters in some ways are like that persistent widow in Jesus' parable that just keeps begging for that judge for justice. When Amos talks about justice flowing like a mighty river, righteousness like an ever-flowing stream, that word ever-flowing stream could be translated a perennial wadi. In the Middle East, there are these wadis, these rivers that come and go according to the rainy season. Often they are just dried creek beds, but when the rain comes, they turn into these flowing rivers. But if it was a perennial wadi, it would always be flowing with water, never stopping, never giving up. That's the kind of living that Amos calls us to, the kind of right living, the kind of justice making, persistent, like a river. The Grand Canyon was made simply by water that moved and didn't stop, creating this beautiful wonder. When we think about our own lives, we often think of ourselves as powerless, that we can't make any difference. But the river and rocks like this remind us that it's only drops of water, streams, that can create goodness and justice and beauty in this world. Rivers also remind us that we are connected. Here, as I stand on the Mississippi River, I am connected to those up the river, beloved ones I know in Minnesota, but also in this great Mississippi watershed. Water comes into this river from all the way from Idaho or in Pennsylvania, Chicago, Colorado. All that water pours into the Mississippi. We are connected. Our actions impact others. Our goodness brings goodness to others. I think of farmers in my own community who are working so hard to limit runoff in their fields and not use so much pesticides or insecticides and those sorts of things so that they could protect the water, not just the water in their own creek beds, but all of us who are downstream, from the shrimp in New Orleans to us who use that water to drink. Our actions impact one another, and the rivers remind us of how we are bound up in life together. Some of the best stories in the Bible about rivers are about the Jordan River. This Jordan River, which comes from, the name Jordan comes from this Semitic word, which means lowly, low. The Jordan River is a low river. It starts high in the mountains in Jordan, then goes deep, hundreds of feet below sea level. And so when Naaman, this great, mighty general, was commanded to jump into that river for healing, refused to. It was too lowly, too below him. And yet that was how he found healing. Jesus too went down into the river to be baptized. He didn't need to be, but it was a sign of how Jesus came down, not just in his incarnation, but into our very lowest selves, our very lowest beings. And as followers of Jesus, we get to be these sort of downward moving people. Rivers move down with gravity, down and out. Here on a floodplain, we know how that works. When there's not water, it just flows out and down. That's how we get to live as followers of Jesus, like a river, down and out, in acts of service and humility and generosity and outwardness. So I pray in this study this month that you have some fun with these river stories. Dive into them, use your imagination and creativity, and think about rivers and water in your life, that living, moving water. Think about how we are connected and how we can tend to our own watersheds, these local places where we can not only impact our own water, but all of the communities around us. Thank you for your participation in this and for your faithful leading of studies with those around you. And I pray that you be blessed by this great river of ours, our great God, who is our source and our destination, who will carry us always. Thank you and many blessings.